Today we're going to move from talking about attachment to talking about anger. And so today I'll just give the definition of anger and the disadvantages. And the definition comes from Geshe Rabten's book, Mind and Mental Functions, which is a very, so clearly written. It's very helpful. So he says, anger is a distinct mental factor that agitates the mind through being unable to bear or through intending to cause harm to an object. It has the function of disturbing and roughening the mind. It acts as a basis for tormenting both oneself and others, and is a contributory condition for the increase of suffering and its causes. Anger is a mistaken conception that over-exaggerates the displeasing aspect of its object. It causes us to see certain people or things in a very disagreeable and unpleasing light. Then the way in which we relate to one another is colored by the fabrication of subjective mental images that completely distort the reality of the situation. And that part is so important, I think, to realize and to really see in the mind how anger actually arises and affects. Also the mind and body both. When I get angry, I feel it in my body. It's like this energy comes from below up. And then in the mind, it starts ruminating, really, going over and over the distorted images that my mind has created about, something or somebody. And it just goes round and round that. And the more it goes around, then the solider it becomes, and the more upset one gets. And it just reinforces this distorted image. So then he says it is essential to recognize that the source of all pleasure and pain lies within the internal workings of our own minds. So this is really such a good example to see that how so deluded, at least I have been in my life, if I perceive harm from somebody, I am so locked into that external them, what they've done, and ruminating on the perceived harm, that it took many years to even get at what that whole experience that I was creating was doing to me. How I was so miserable when I engaged in that. So it really, the only way to work with anger is this internal process, looking at our own process of how anger manifests in the mind. And so it's very helpful to reflect on the disadvantages of anger, which helps us really get present with how the process of anger affects us. Because if we don't see the disadvantages of something and really work with that for some time, then I think we keep focused externally on what the other did, or what is making me angry out there. So looking at the disadvantages helps us bring our focus inward about how this mental factor is affecting us internally. And these disadvantages are from Vinabachudran. So the first one is it destroys the positive potentials that we create with so much effort, or the merit, another way to say that. Meritorious actions can be destroyed in an instant with big anger. So that's quite a good reason to protect the mind from anger, for sure. Second, we become disagreeable and bad-tempered. Third, it ruins friendships, generates tension with colleagues, is the main cause for wars and conflicts. Fourth, we are unhappy. I mean, just looking at that, it's impossible to have a happy mind and anger at the same time. Impossible. 5, it robs us of our reason and good sense, makes us act outrageously, saying and doing things that later we regret. We harm others physically and mentally. Because we act so poorly, others do not like us and even wish to harm us. Others don't try to harm a kind person. We'll be quick to lose our temper again in future lives. So practicing this in this life, we create the causes and conditions for it to continue with a lot of strength. We create much negative karma, causing lower rebirth. And 10, it impedes our spiritual advancement, attaining realizations, etc. So when I've read this list, it's not something I want to read. You know, my ego doesn't want to look at this. So that always tells me that I need to keep looking at this a lot. Because the more you look at it, the more you build up this momentum to really guard the mind from anger, because it is so destructive, first of all to ourselves, and then of course to those around us. So it takes some courage to look at these things, but as we look at them, it gets easier, and as it gets easier, then we can start actually interrupting these habits, and over time get to the place where we can dispel these afflictions from our mind. And so that's what we're working at doing. So we do, you know, step by step, little by little, and again, be content to create these causes for this result of less afflictions over time.